Welcome to the Christian Romance Podcast, where we go behind the books with inspiring Christian romance authors, exploring faith, love, and the journey that brings the story to life. I'm your host, Kelly Jo Wilson, and today we're chatting with Chautona Havig. Chautona is a USA Today Bestselling author who lives in an oxymoron. She escapes into imaginary worlds that look startlingly similar to ours and writes the stories that emerge. She's written over 130 books across multiple genres, all with a thread of faith and a touch of whimsy. An irrepressible optimist, Chautona sees everything through a kaleidoscope of It's a Wonderful Life sprinkled with fairy tales. Be sure to stay tuned to the end of the episode so you can hear about our newest book giveaway. Now, here's my conversation with Chautona. Hi, Chautona. I am so happy to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you for having me. This is going to be fun. Okay, we've already been having fun, but it's going to continue to be fun.
Absolutely. I could just talk with you all day. I am so excited, but I'm really excited for our listeners to hear about all your wonderful stories. You have so many books. About 130 now, you were just saying, which is an absolute amazing accomplishment. And I'm just so excited to hear how you got started, to hear for our listeners to hear how you got started, and just to hear more about you. Why don't you just let everyone know how you got started on this writing journey?
Okay, so back in 1982, the dark ages, before internet and all the fun stuffness, my mom gave me a book. And it was A Tree Grows in Brooklyn. My mom has this thing, she walks in the room, she sets the book on the bed, says, I think you ought to read it, and walks out. This is a total, like, the old fashioned, okay, it wasn't as exciting as this, but it was like this, where you have no idea what the book is about, right? And I picked it up and I started reading, and I got to this point, and it's about a little girl in turn of the century Brooklyn, turn of the 20th century Brooklyn. We can't say that anymore. And she lives in the tenements. They're very poor. Her dad's a drunk. Her mom is like this, she's a scrub woman and works hard every day to try to keep them fed. They don't always have enough food. And she falls in love with this school. Dad lies and says she's moving near the school so that she can go to it. And she goes. And in the school on Thanksgiving, this teacher had this little tiny little pie, and she did it for some reason, and then she was going to throw it away. And the kids, she's like, "Does anyone want it?" And the kids are too proud to say they're hungry and they want the food,
Aw.
But she can't stand seeing it go. So she gets the pie, she eats the pie. And on Monday, the teacher asks if she enjoyed it. And she says, "Oh, it wasn't for me. It was for these little," and she tells this big, elaborate, just huge lie, lots of embellishment and everything. And the teacher, just said, "That's an awfully little pie to save 2 lives," and and I always pictured it like one of those little banquet pot pies, I mean, that's
Oh, yeah, totally.
little thing, and then the teacher, she says, "Look, these stories you tell all the time, some people would think they're terrible, horrible lies. So tell the truth and write what you think should have happened."
Ah.
And that just solved all my problems as a child, because I hated the truth because it was never what I thought it should be. But I hated lies because lies, I mean, because lies, you're going to hate them, right? And so I was just like, yeah, no. So when I realized that, I was like, I want to be a writer. And I had a plan. I was like, I had this big old plan. I knew what I was going to do. And I was not going to get married. And I wasn't going to have children. I was going to be a teacher in a yellow house with a white picket fence and a collie. This was going to be my life. I would teach for 9 months, write for 3 months, edit the next 9 months. This was going to be my plan. I was like set. I got married at 18. I had 9 kids. And oh, by the way, I hate teaching. At least I hate teaching children. I like workshops, but I just like,
Oh my gosh.
I'm terrible. And I homeschooled all 9 kids. God was merciful to my children.
God bless you. That is that's an accomplishment in itself for sure.
Crazy.
Yes. But crazy,
So-
lovely chaos.
Those 9 kids actually come into play with how I actually started writing, which is why I went ahead and told the backstory. So When you have 8 kids, this was before number 9, like I'm an overachiever. But when you have 8 kids and you go places, people do this thing. They're like, I don't know how you can do it with all those kids. I can't handle the 1 or 2 I have myself. And it used to drive me nuts
Yeah.
because I'm like, what, you think I started off with 9 all at once and I knew what I was doing? You get them one at a time, or at least I do the old fashioned way. Some people get twins, but me, no, I had to do every labor individually. I had to, this is like all the things, right? And so, but I would go out and they would say this and it would make me so mad because I'd be like, I didn't get them all at once. I learned just like you do, and I'm still failing every day. I mean, this is reality, people. Yeah. Okay. One day I had it. I just had it. And I was like, what would happen if you did? What if you were like 22, 23 and you got 8 kids all at once?
Oh.
And what if they're all different ages? What if you don't know much about kids? You never babysat. What if, and and what if you got the mother-in-law because the kids still have a grandma? So you've got a mother-in-law, no husband to be a buffer. I mean, I just went down the what if thing. And by the way, you got to deal with the grief because if you've got all these kids and they're your nieces and nephews, your sister's toast. So how are you going to deal with that? And so I started writing and I went a little crazy. My first book, it was 60,000 words. Those 60,000, it read like a laundry list. Okay. It was really hilarious. It was just like events, It was really bad with little scenes in the middle, but mostly it's just like events. It was just the most boring thing. I took those 60,000 words and those became 3 books. Well, really 2.5 books of 120,000 words each.
That's amazing.
I just filled it out.
Yeah, but that's good. I mean, the first one was just like an outline. You could look at it like that.
Right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
You had to get it down. That's all. That's I was going to say, that's a great story idea. So I'm so glad that you turned it into a story and a bunch of events.
It became a 4-book series eventually. And it is where most people found me.
Okay.
There are, nowadays it's been 12 years since the big push to get the books out. So, people have found me through other things since then, but at the beginning, at least, that's where they found me on that one or Fast Forward. Yeah, I kind of went nuts.
Now,
and I couldn't stop. I get this idea and I keep going and I keep going and I keep going. And it was like, oh, what about this one? I've got over 200, at least over 200, probably more books with like chapter 1 so that I don't forget what I wanted to do with it. Because I'm like, and so sometimes I just go pull them out and I'm like, okay.
I love it. And it is very healthy. Like you said, you did not like the truth. The truth was not right. It was too boring. And lies, right. You just obviously can't like lies, especially
right?
It doesn't resonate with your heart. So you can make up new stories. That's it. Truth.
I can write what should have happened.
Right, what should have happened.
Because killing off a mother of 8 children is definitely what should have happened.
It's an interesting story. What is that series called? So our listeners,
that is Aggie's Inheritance, and the first book is Ready or Not.
Wow, that's perfect titling, I feel like. Ready or Not, absolutely. You know what that kind of reminds me of?
Yeah, but there's Ready or Not, For Keeps, and Here We Come. So they're all like children's game type things.
I love it. It makes me kind of think of Life as We Know It. Have you ever seen that movie? With Josh Duhamel and Katherine Heigl. It's very cute. Yes, it's very cute. Her sister passes away in it, and then they both are like friends of the couple, it's her sister, and then he's the friend, and they have to take care of their child after they pass away.
Oh, how fun.
And then it's like meets, the what's the movie with like the dozen kids, like the bunch of kids.
Cheaper by the Dozen.
Yeah, Cheaper by the Dozen. Yes, I love it. That's what I'm picturing with this chaos, but then grief. This mom. I mean, the aunt is like going through this and she wants to do a great job. Oh my gosh, there's so much you can do with that. I love it. I
had a blast. I love writing kids, and I always forget how much I love writing kids until I do. I just got finished with a book that has a large family again. So it's like that series meets my other series.
Aww.
And I was like, It was so much fun.
That is so fun. I absolutely love it. So, would you say that that's the series? Because you have so many books. I was going to ask you, like, what would you say if our listeners, okay, so mainly looking for the romance, right? For our, readers and listeners, what would you say is a good series to start with you if they want to get a good feel for like your writing because you have so many?
Series. Okay, that's with romance series is tougher
Yeah.
because
Or even just what book would you say that they could start with?
okay, I got it. I got it.
Get it, girl.
Random Acts of Shyness.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so this has a story behind it that I absolutely have to tell. I'm so sorry, but I have to.
Yes. What do you mean? Tell it.
I used to go sit down at Denny's every night, and I would sit in booth 14, and I would write all night. But there was this guy that used to work with my husband who would come in a couple nights a week, and he would sit in booth 35, which is just across the aisle, but it's one of those two-seaters, and he would talk. Well, one night after my friend gets up, she's done writing for the night. She was with me. And she goes, he just walked over and sat down. And I'm like, oh no, here we go. Because you think I can talk? I got nothing on this dude. And he's brilliant. He's one of those incredibly brilliant people who is actually really good at showing someone else something that's complicated. He can get the message across without always. Sometimes he was, but not always. He wasn't always condescending about it, which was kind of nice.
Yeah.
But sometimes he just got too smart for his own good. And or for my own good, maybe. I don't know. This night, okay, remember, we're in Denny's. There are diners all around us. It's midnight and everybody's coming in from the bars. He starts talking about the bladder habits of mammals at the top of his very deep, sonorous voice. And the entire restaurant can hear about how all mammals over 2 pounds, you need to know this. This is very important. You never know when it's going to come in handy.
True.
It did for me. But any mammal over 2 pounds, basically it takes 20, maximum 40 seconds to empty the bladder. Elephant, rabbit, doesn't matter. Because of the size of the urethra. Because yes, he's talking about this. And I'm like, oh my gravy. And he kept going, so 20 some odd minutes to tell me this. Then he pulled out his phone. He pulled up the scientific journal he got the information from. And he read me the article.
The whole article?
In Denny's. The whole article. Another 40 minutes. I packed up my stuff.
40 minutes?
40 more. So we're now at an hour.
Goodness.
I packed up my stuff. I went home. I woke up my husband. He still speaks to me. This is what a godly and loving man he is. And I said, insert name here, is going to be single for the rest of his life. I was just like so mad. And that idea started percolating.
No, of course. I love it. Of course you got an idea.
Okay, so have you ever seen the Chris O'Donnell movie, The Bachelor?
Yes.
Okay, in The Bachelor, there's this scene when she gets home from the Starlight Room where her little sister bounces up. She's like, so how'd it go? And she's just like, I don't want to talk about it. And I saw that with that. And so this guy so they were missionaries as kids. And his mom had this thing about making sure her kids were culturally literate. So when they came back from the mission field as adults, they would not be like floundering, trying to figure out what people are talking about, which was good, except that he was such an awkward person that she actually taught him to spout random animal facts when he felt awkward.
Ah.
Well, guess when he feels awkward?
Always.
On dates.
On dates.
He has a series of first dates and no second dates. Because, so he comes in the door and she's like, so how'd it go? And she's like, oh no, not the mating habits of chimps. Tell me it wasn't the mating habits of chimps. And he's like, no. And she's like, life cycle of a dung beetle.
Oh my gosh.
And he's like, no. And she says, oh no, not the bladders. And it just kind of all goes from there. But it kind of gives my balance of there's a lot of faith in the book, and there's a lot of humor, and there's a lot of just relationships, not just between a couple, but between, brother and sister and friend, and mother and daughter, and I really bring in the relationship. So it's a good entry, I think. um Either that or not a word.
Or not a word. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. I think that that's adorable, especially because so many people feel like they are, at least a lot of people who have reached out to me, who through my email list, or have connected with me. A lot of the women listening feel like they're just too broken to love. So I feel like with him, with that character, he has a lot of first dates. Nobody comes back for the second date because he's has this, this shyness, like, the random acts of shyness. And I just love that. I love that you kind of take us through his journey, and how finding, sometimes you got to wade through a bunch of first dates to get to the one that'll
Yeah.
really kind of hang out, and it also, it shows that picture of God's love for us, that, we might think that we're too weird or too broken or too, we're just not meant for anybody. And then he can kind of bless you, and
Yeah.
bless you in that way. I love it. It's so cute. What
It
about
was
not a
fun.
word? Talk about it.
Not a word is kind of another, it's another, I don't want to say like this is the kind of book I write, but it is kind of not a word. We have, I really addressed the concept. It was when my girls were in high school anyway. It was a big thing about, you pretty much have to protect the purity of the
Mm,
guys around you. Like, guys are raving animals sex wise, and girls have absolutely no interest. And I just totally debunked that and said, So she's going out with the bad boy of the town, and she she's like the darling of the church, and she seduces him. I mean, there's no way to put it. And I mean, there's nothing on page because Chautona couldn't write that if she tried.
right.
Chatona's the one that wrote the kiss that half the readers missed. It was that discreet. So, I mean, it is not on the page.
Right.
But, after that, it's not really a spoiler. I'm pretty sure it's on the back of the book. She gets pregnant, and
Mm,
she accuses him of rape. And the story
wow.
goes from there.
Wow, I love it. And those are just such real things, because that happens a lot, especially like when we're talking Christian romance. A lot of times people have a little bit of a stigma about Christian romance, meaning that, sometimes, it has to be follow a certain path. But I love so much talking to like these amazing authors like yourself, who bring in real elements, real people, real situations, because Christians deal with these real things in the world.
Yeah.
It's we all sin. We are all have a brokenness about us. So we all need Jesus. We all have to come back to him. And, we want to live this Christian life, and we want to try to follow his way and be obedient. But sometimes we miss, we do.
Yeah.
And it, especially with her. So is it, well, you have both sides of it, right? Because it's
Yeah,
the
you get
romance.
both
Okay.
sides. He has no idea until it's too late. There's just a lot. It's a pretty intense book,
Mm-hmm.
but I think it's one of my best, and it's definitely one of my top 5 favorites that I've written.
Yeah.
It really spoke to my heart, especially since I really hated the idea that there were girls that felt like there was something wrong with them because they were struggling. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no, it's good that you're struggling and not giving in. Okay, let's start there.
Oh yeah.
you
Absolutely.
know and what do you do? And I didn't just make her just be a jerk to
Mm-hmm.
be a jerk. She got cornered and panicked, and then didn't know what to do with herself. And sometimes, when people are cornered, they do terrible things, like
Mm-hmm.
accuse people of something they didn't do.
Oh.
And this guy is stuck in this town. She leaves. He's stuck in this town with this reputation that the whole town knows he raped her, and he didn't.
Oh, absolutely. And that's real. I mean, that happens,
Yeah.
it very much so. And it usually is, like you said, the other way around, right? So it's
Yeah.
it's usually pegged as, guys and things like that, but that's not always the case. A lot of
Right.
times, you know, girls are capable of some crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It's tough and it's just very real. I love it. I'll definitely put a link to it in the show notes as well so that people can go to it, because I just love that, because it's nice to show characters really struggling with these kind of things. Like Christian characters that it's in an overt kind of way, right? Like a natural, these natural big events that happen in life that like you said, she was cornered. I mean, how many times have we been cornered and we've thrown somebody under the bus, or we've done something that we regret? Plenty of
Right.
times, plenty, and I love that it opens, or it's very inviting for a redemption too.
Right.
At the end, I don't want to have any spoilers or anything, but it definitely,
It
there's a
is
seed.
loosely, I gotta say, it is loosely connected to that Aggie's Inheritance series. There
Oh, nice.
are crossover characters. She does meet some of those characters. So, if anyone's actually read Aggie, this is parallel to it.
Oh, that's fun. I love that. That's like, isn't
That
that the
happens a
most
lot with
fun?
my books.
I was just going to say, isn't that the most fun? Like, do you know what I mean? Like crossing your characters and
Yes.
crossing the worlds and doing,
Yes.
you do a lot of Christmas books too.
Yes.
With that. So did you want to talk about any of those kind of books how you like cross over and like kind of make seasonal kind of books as well?
I do a lot. Okay. So like we have this annual Christmas, collection. There's 4 authors, and sometimes they mix up. The last few years we've had the same, and we had the same for the first few, but it kind of mixes up. But those have created like this novella thing, but I also have a lot of Christmas novels. But the last few years in our collection, I've done this New Cheltenham. I've created, I don't know if you're familiar with California's Solvang, but it's a Danish town in central California along the coast. I mean, it has the windmills and it has it goes all things Danish. So I created in the middle of the Midwest, in this place that I don't tell people even what state it is. So I stuck a fake English village there. They've got pubs, they've got tea rooms, they've got cobblestone streets, they've got the buildings that look like right off of an English high street. They even have a residential area with thatched roofed houses. And I mean, it's just an English village stuck in the Midwest, and it's all tourist. And so I started off with the guy who inherits a building with conditions. He's got to live there for a year, and he has to tell a ghost story at the annual ghost story telling contest in the town, because that was, very Dickensian. We got to do this thing, right? Except he's plasmophobic. And yeah. And it just has kind of gone from there. I just kept going and going and going and going. And I mean, it's been in books before this series, but the New Cheltenham series, it's become this Christmas tradition now. And this year's novella actually became a novel. I couldn't stop. I create, it's like New Cheltenham meets Aggie. I've got this family she's got 7 kids. And she's lost her husband. So her oldest son, he's just the sweetest guy. I love him so much. He's 25 and trying to support his family. And I'm just like, oh, I love you.
I love them too.
And it's just like, so yeah. But that's a lot of what you'll find. I've got like the world's biggest miscommunication story ever. 10 years of not talking about why they're not dating. And there's a reason why they aren't talking, but they each have a different reason, and it's total miscommunication, but there's a reason they're not talking. Because you know what? Miscommunication is a real thing, and people like to complain, well, if they would just talk. Well, in real life, people don't always talk. It's not that we could just talk about it and get it over with, but for reasons that we all have of our own, we don't. And so I was like, yeah, I'm just going to take this to the nth degree. So 10 years in a poker game, and finally they get to go out,
The couple gets to go out, right? You say. Okay. Oh my gosh. That is a slow burn.
I took slow burn to a new level.
That's a slow burn forever. I love it. Oh my goodness. I love slow burn. I really do. I always love that. I always love like the friends to lovers. I love that trope as well.
Those two are my favorite. And those two go really well together.
Absolutely. I feel like they're one and the same, because usually the friends to lovers are like, either one or both, or, like they're one has feelings, or maybe they don't catch, and it takes a while. usually to build, or at least for one of them to get off the wall and do something about it. I do like enemies to lovers too, but it's tough sometimes because a lot of times it's like sometimes it's a lot of similarities, like it's a lot of the same kind of
Yeah.
enemies to lovers, that's why like friends to lovers you can really vary it a little bit, although I could be wrong because there's a lot of good books with enemies to lovers that's a little different.
I love JC Weaver. She has renamed it. She calls it Loathe to Love. And I just love that so much.
Loathe to love? That is so great.
I am on a mission to rename enemies to lover to Loathe to Love.
You know
that
what?
is so genius.
That's it. It's genius. I'm sharing it too in the show notes. Oh, but I am on the mission too, because to be honest, they're not always enemies. Like I just wrote a novella that is to introduce people to my because I have my new book coming out. And they're not necessarily enemies. They just she doesn't like him right away. She actually gets mad. She doesn't really like him. So that's exactly what it would be. Loathe lover.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. That's perfect.
Yeah, my 12 Dates of Christmas, she considers him her nemesis from high school. He ruined high school for her. He's got no clue.
Yeah.
He is absolutely clueless. And she's just like, why would I go out with you? He's like, you want to get coffee? She's like a date. She's like, yeah, the coffee, the beans. And she's just going, you ruined high school for me. And you think, and he's like, what? I don't get it. And,
I don't even remember.
It's one of those, again, it's the misunderstanding trope, but it has nothing to do with him. It has nothing whatsoever to do with him. And that I loved so much because a lot of times those things, that's exactly what happens. We see it all as from this person, but it's really this person.
Absolutely. 100%. We do that all the time. Or you think somebody thinks something of you and they are just off living their life. They don't even realize, like you said, he didn't even know. It's just so honest. It happens so much. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Loathe to lovers. I love it.
Yeah. Isn't that I just love,
it's
love
perfect.
To love. This is great. This is what we want. We want loathe to love.
Absolutely. Loathe to love. That's exactly what happened. Oh my goodness. I love it.
Right.
So whenever you're writing a book, like whenever you're going through your process, especially with like the romance and the couples, like, cause you have you're diving into some hard themes there, right? So is it with the spiritual aspect of it? Because Christian fiction, I mean, that's the best part, right? It's not like writing secular. You're really co-creating with God. He's there with you. He's guiding you through it. And I love to hear about what that looks like. Do you kind of plot it out? Do you just write it out and then kind of at the end kind of, have that spiritual thread go through, or like throughout it, he's kind of teaching you some lessons that you're incorporating into the story? Like, how does that look for you?
The answer is yes.
Yes. All of the above.
So, it's really interesting because a lot of times I go into a book with an idea of where this is going to go. And most of the time it goes somewhere completely different. That's what I'm doing right now. I'm like, this isn't what I had planned. Oh, okay. And it's interesting because I think a lot of times it really boils down to what am I studying as to what comes into it. But not necessarily. Sometimes I find I'm looking at something that I studied like 3-4 years ago, and all of a sudden it's playing out on the page and my fingers, and I'm just going, oh, but then, as I'm writing, it's happening. I thought about it beforehand, and sometimes it got worked in and other times it didn't. And then obviously during editing, sometimes I'm like, I remember, oh my goodness, I remember the one time that I was reading it and I was like, that is not true. Where did that come from? Because I wrote biblical, was it heresy? But it was inaccuracy. And I was like, where did that come from? That is not true. And I had to go look up and find what I was finding. And I swear, I don't like to put words in God's mouth, but I swear God did that to show me faulty thinking in my head to put a stop to it. I'm
Oh,
convinced that's why he did that.
yeah.
And it's just like, wow, okay, Lord. So I mean, that whole thing got taken out, but it didn't matter because I learned from it.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so it was, it's like, okay, well, whatever. And then, when you're done, you pray. You're like, Lord, show me what else needs to come out. What else needs to go in? Does anything? Do I need to tie another book in a way that I didn't because there's a lesson that needs to continue? All those things. And half the time I have no idea if he does or doesn't do it for years. And then I get this email and I'm like, okay, that's what that was.
Aw, you get an email like from a reader.
A reader. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. Talk about that. I was going to ask you that. Like how
Oh,
have you
readers
gotten
are
readers
the
reaching out to
best.
you? Yes, I
Yeah.
know. They're the
The
best.
one that stands out the most, I mean, I get at least one a week, usually two or three, where, they
Oh,
said this blessed me, that blessed me, or whatever. But this one, I'll never forget it. I got an email. It was pretty early on, I would say in the first, before 2015. I got this email. There was, I don't know, 7, 8 pictures in it. It was this woman's baptism. She
oh,
said, I was reading, and I don't remember if it was Aggie or Past Forward. I'm pretty sure it was Past Forward. But I was reading through the series, and I just realized I'm not where I need to be with God. I have
mm.
not obeyed him in this. I have not. And so I wanted to share my baptism pictures with you, and I sobbed. I'm not a crier, but I sobbed. I was just like,
Yeah.
yes, thank you, Lord. Because sometimes you wonder, am I doing the right thing? Am I doing what he wants from me? We can't know. We only have assumptions based upon, what the word says and how people are reacting, but you don't know. But when someone says I had to obey God, you
Mhm.
figure you must have done something he wanted you to do.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. But it is hard though because it can be really lonely behind the screen, behind
Yeah,
the tablet, behind whatever, whatever you're writing. It can be lonely in that place because you're just kind of putting it out there
right,
with not always getting feedback. And even in having the Holy Spirit with you, a lot of times we question ourselves. I know I
right.
do. It's always like, wait, did I hear that right? Wait, what? I don't know. And then I question it, and then I'm like, oh yes, that was you. Absolutely. It's just about surrendering every day and all. I have to every single day. I have to be like, God, please help me to hear you because I won't. I'll like, you know, get in your way and I don't want to. But yeah, it's absolutely true. It's hard. It is very hard. I love that so much. And I love that you get so much feedback from readers that you're getting these emails,
It's
every
great.
week. Yeah, it's perfect. It's wonderful. I was gonna
So,
ask.
guys, I'm just gonna say I'm gonna jump in and absolutely take over. Seriously, though, when you have something you want to say to an author, but you feel like, I she's too busy for me. Don't write it. Even if they never get back to you, they got it, they read it, and it meant something.
Yes, 100%. 100%, absolutely. And no matter what, it's we're always like talking about like on the show we usually talk about reviews and things like that, but I love, to promote people getting those email, that
Yeah,
connection. It's so important, especially now we live in a virtual world anymore, which
right.
don't get me wrong, I love because that gives us the opportunity to be talking right now.
Yeah.
But it's so nice to really connect on a personal level, and everybody's busy. I know that. And that's why it's so amazing if something is impacting you or you have a question or anything like that, like reach out to Chautona, reach
Right.
out to your authors, reach out to them, get on their email list. It's very important. They will certainly see it and they will most of the time respond.
Yeah.
Because that's like, wonderful. I mean, you can have millions of book sales. I can tell you that, but reaching people in this space, Christian romance, Christian fiction is the number one thing other than, doing, following God's call,
Right.
following what he needs, he needs you to hear. Have you ever, so I love that reader reached out to you and said about, she's like, hasn't been baptized or wasn't following God and she's showing you her that's a huge step.
Right.
And I was going to ask you if you ever had anybody reach out saying like, this really changed me. This really changed my outlook on things, because that is just so important and it's so impactful. What do you hope that readers really want to take away from your stories? Does it vary depending on what the story is, or is it kind of an overall theme of just like encouragement or something from your stories?
Yes.
Yes, all of the above again.
Well, it's true. I mean, each book you do often have something that you hope will encourage and uplift or convict, whatever needs to be done. But in addition to that, my goal isn't really to give them a takeaway. My goal is to give them a point. I want to
Mm.
point them to Jesus, point them to the Word, and get wait a minute. I mean, I had one other author. She contacted me and she was like, "We're friends," and she's like, "I don't understand elders in your book,"
Hmm.
and I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "Well, you've got elders in your churches and they're shepherding and they're encouraging, they're confronting, they're involved in I've never seen that." And it just broke my heart. I'm like, "Wait a
Aw.
minute, because this is what the church is supposed to be. This is what we're supposed to see happen." Yet we have a pastor, minister, whatever the local congregation calls theirs, preaching, but we're supposed to have elders for one thing who that pastor answers to. You look at scripture and we're supposed to be under shepherding, and it's not all one dude's job.
Mm-hmm. For
And so,
sure.
when someone is out of line and the elders confront, this is a beautiful and wonderful thing. And she's never seen that or the reverse. I remember an elder coming to me when I was in high school and just saying, "Your love of the word will keep you strong. Keep
Aw.
in the word." And that's it. That's all he said, but I've never forgotten it. And I don't
Aw.
think I ever will. He's just like, it was just encouragement. But coming from him, it reminded me that they're watching and they care and they're
Mm-hmm.
behind you. They've got your back. They're not just here to pounce if you do something wrong.
Yeah. For sure. For
Yeah.
sure. Oh, that's so important. I love that you said it's to point people
Yeah.
because I feel like nowadays, especially with a lot of stories that are shared, not necessarily all, Christian stories, but, just all over the media, kids' books, a lot of kids' books, secular kids' books, especially, are always trying to like shove a message, right?
Right.
Like really push this message that's like so like overt in your face, and it's
Yeah.
like subtle, it just, you can do so much more if you're pointing people just to Jesus, to God
Right.
themselves, because it's not, we plant seeds, right? I love like
Right.
how Paul says, and I forget which verse, I wish I remember because I always think of this, I got to go back and look, when he says, "I came, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase," right? Like
Right.
it's not our job, like you said,
Right.
it's, I just want to point people, I want to give them, show them what this looks like in a person, show them what this looks like in a relationship, especially because it's all about relationship with Jesus and with God and in our relationships with other people. That's how we kind of
Right.
exercise our faith and stuff. So I love that. I think it's fantastic.
Yeah, that's like
Fantastic.
the little tagline I've got on my website. It says, "I use story to point readers to the master storyteller."
Oh yeah.
And it was just like, that's the conciseness. That's what it is. This is what you get.
For sure. 100%. I love that. That's beautiful. Honestly, Chautona. And, over 130 books. It's amazing. I mean, you've
It's
pointed,
fun.
it's fun, but you've definitely pointed lots of people, I'm sure, people you have no idea about. And I just love it. I love to celebrate it. Before we go, we're almost at time, but before we go, I did want to ask you, just in the discussion of, how God is changing hearts and things like that, is there a verse that really has helped you along your way, along your journey, especially because it's tough, right, being a mom, being an author, having a family, whether it's 2 or 9 kids, it's tough, especially homeschooling is very hard too, because that takes a whole other level
Yeah.
of patience and preparation and time and effort. It's so important And it's such important work. A good friend of mine homeschooled, actually a couple friends of mine homeschool, and I see them, how they're like so organized and they're really prepping and they do this amazing job. So during all of that and all of the, inevitable challenges in life with a big family, especially, was there a verse that really kind of anchored you?
Yeah, and it's really weird. It's my favorite verse, and people usually kind of roll their eyes because they're like, "What the heck?" But James 4:17 is
Aw.
my favorite verse, and it says, "He who knows the right thing to do and does not do it, to him it is sin." And I like
Mm,
that, "to him," because it focuses on the fact that I can have an idea that this is right, and if I violate my own conscience, regardless of whether it's truly right or wrong, in general, if I think wearing red socks is a sin and I wear red socks, then I'm sinning, even though there's no sin in wearing red socks, but I'm
mm,
violating my own conscience. And so, but the focus really is do the right thing.
mhm,
And I need that reminder because I will do the next thing that just pushes itself into me and ignore the right thing if I'm not focused. And so that's just like, but it fits so many. It fits so many books, really. Like the one I'm writing right now, this guy, he's doing a fake dating and the gal doesn't know it. This is not the right thing.
No, that is not. Oh my
He's
goodness.
he really is convinced that this is not going to mean anything to her. She doesn't care, but he needs to do this for reasons. And I'm just like, you idiot.
He is going to learn his lesson, is
Yeah,
what
he's
will
got a
happen.
lesson to learn. And yeah,
Oh, that
I'm
is
going to turn
funny.
it into loath to love.
Turn it into loath to love. Yes, for sure. Loath to love. Oh my goodness. But that is a really good verse. I think that that's such a good thing to think about. I also, just the other day I was thinking, like, when we sin and when we make mistakes, even if, like, say we get mad at somebody else, and we're angry, frustrated, we let it overcome us. For me, it's really hard to remember that, like, it's a sin against God, right? To put, like, how Jesus says, you're sinning against me. Like, put him in front of, like, picture him in front of this person. No matter what
Right,
they've done to you, you don't want to do that because it ultimately goes against him, right? Because that's
right,
not how we want to treat. So I know that's kind of what I think of too, like just doing the right thing and trying
right.
to keep that in mind. It's hard. We got to surrender. I definitely have to surrender every day.
Fail daily,
Fail,
hourly,
yes.
minutely.
Hourly.
I might make it a second or two here and there.
Hourly. We have to pause this right now so we can surrender it right now. We're about
Right?
to fail again. You are so funny. Oh my goodness. Um, anyway, but before we go, I want to talk about this new book coming out. So this new collection, Love Blooms on Valentine's. Why don't you let our listeners know about it?
So this is one of the Two Dogs Publishing's collections. We've done the summer heat. They did a spring, I think, romance last year, or well, no, it was a summer romance this year. And then now we've got the winter shivers going on right now. Um, that was really fun. I gotta say, I had so much fun because I wrote a gal who has to protect herself from goons, and the guy who should be able to help her has a broken leg, so he can't. So she goes all home alone on the goons, and it was just so much fun. So, but now they're doing Valentine's Day. And so this guy that I'm talking about with his fake dating, yeah. So he's nobody knows in my town, nobody knows that this guy is a well known, he's got a pseudonym. He's a well known lyricist and composer. He writes love songs. And
Ah,
he was told in junior high by his uncle that he needed to make sure that he stayed out of relationships because it would skew, the hurt and the pain that would come, it would skew it. And he had this idea of he would end up being like Taylor Swift. So he's like, I don't want this. I don't want the breakup songs. I want the love songs. And so he has had no relationships his whole life. He's in his mid to late 30s and no relationships, right?
Oh my.
He has a cat, Swifty,
A
to remind
Swiftie.
him to stay out of the relationship thing. But he has his first writing block. He can't write. Nothing is coming. So at a Christmas exchange, when they did like a funky Yankee swap, where you go pick up a gift, you open it, and then you present it to someone. That's their gift. You want them to have it for whatever specific reason. And so he picked up his own gift and handed it to a gal because he wanted to. He's like, I will do this. I will like give her things to do, and I will do them with her to see if I could get some feelings going. Then maybe I could do this thing, and she won't care because she's not going to be interested in me, and so this will work. Yeah, this ain't gonna work.
It's not gonna work.
So yeah, it's Be My Inspiration is mine. There's also, I think, Katie Lee. I should look and see who else is in this thing. Katie Lee and Gina Conroy and Helena Smrek. I can't pronounce her last name. Smrceek. There's 6 letters and 1 vowel in this name, and I don't know what to do with them. Sorry, Helena.
Oh, Helena, that's all we gotta know. We'll put a link. We'll put a link to the collection. And how is this? So your story is Be My Inspiration, which I love. It just sounds super fun, especially because how is he? Oh my gosh, what is he going to do? Okay, how is he going to date? He has no idea. He has not dated.
He doesn't know how to date.
He has no idea. What's he doing? Oh my goodness. I like him though. I'm rooting for him already.
She's a single mom, so this gets really interesting.
Yes. Yeah. She probably has a lot of patience if she's a single mom.
She's going to need a lot with him.
Yes. She's probably, oh my gosh. I love that.
And I need all the prayers for this book because for reasons that I don't understand, I have to write it in first person. I hate first person. I don't like reading it. I don't like writing it. But the story needs it. There's so much just like talking to the reader in this book. It's kind of crazy, but I'm having fun, but I'm not good at the first personness.
I'm sure you're very good at it. Don't be too hard on yourself.
Okay. Let's put it this way. The first person is not my strength. We'll go there.
It's hard. It's hard to write in first person. Yeah. You know, it's very hard, especially to keep the tenses all correct and everything. It's very hard.
Well, especially since I also flip between I'm writing first, third, but when he's talking to the reader, he has to go into present tense or it would make no sense.
Right.
So in the same paragraph, it's flipping sometimes, and I think it's flowing all right. I think it's actually working. But then I get that nervous, you don't know what you're talking about.
Don't doubt.
But so far, no complaints from the beta readers. So
great.
All the fingers, toes, and nose hairs crossed.
Nose hairs.
Hey, they're always crossed, so I'm figuring this is a good thing.
It's good. If they're crossed, you're all good. No worries.
Because of the cross, right?
You crack me up. I love it. So this collection comes out on Valentine's Day, correct? Okay, perfect. And where is the best place?
Very limited time.
Okay, so it's very limited. So our listeners listening to this right now, where can they go to get a copy of this collection?
They can pre-order on Amazon. It will be on Amazon. It will be also, what's the word I'm looking for? Come on, Chautona Brains. Kindle Unlimited. And there will be a paperback of this one. We didn't do it on the Winter Shivers and people were sad. So they figured out how to make people not sad and let us have it. So
great. Fantastic. Yeah. Fantastic.
So excited.
Thank you so much, Chautona. I am just so happy to talk with you, and I'm so happy to hear more about your stories and your process and all of these wonderful books that are in your head that you're letting us share in the fun with. I just love it. I love it so much. I cannot wait to see what else.
I appreciate you getting books in front of readers. Readers are always looking, where do I go next? And having someone say, well, here's one is a great, because it's like walking into a candy store and every single thing in there is your favorite.
Yes, absolutely.
Which one do you grab? But if someone walks up to you and says, here, try this one. Okay, I don't have to think. No decision fatigue. Fork over the goodness.
No decision fatigue. I feel like it's so fun too to hear more about. That's what I love about doing this show is that, readers, it's fun to get behind the scenes and to hear more about the authors that they love, or maybe
Yeah.
authors they never knew about. And now they have, like you said, instead of decision fatigue, now they're going to go right to the show notes and they're going to get Love Blooms on Valentine. And they're going to have, how many books are in the series? 4?
I think there are 4 in
4.
here. Let me double check and make sure I'm not lying. Yes, there are 4.
Yeah.
Why lie if I don't have to?
Lies are not good.
I learned that lesson, remember?
You learned the lesson way, way long time ago.
Full circle. Hey, you are good. You are so good. You should write a book. Oh.
I have tried. Yes, I did write a book. I read a couple books. Not as many as you. You are my inspiration, though, I will tell you. But thank you so much, Chautona. This has been such a pleasure. Why don't you let listeners know where the best place is that they can connect with you and email you after they are super impacted by your stories?
I would say go to chautona.com. It's just chautona.com. And up on the top, if you want socials, they're up there. Twitter is up there. I'm never there. Or Twix. I call it Twix now since they've changed to X, and I'm like, whatever, it's Twix.
Oh my gosh, you call it Twix? That's great.
Isn't that hilarious? I'm almost never there, but I am on Facebook. I have my own group even on Facebook. I'm on Instagram, and that's pretty much it. But I have a newsletter. It goes out sometimes once a week and sometimes once a month. It's when I have something to say. Why send something to your inbox if there's nothing in it for you but me getting to blather on? If you want me to blather on, read a book. Okay, my newsletters are pretty long, but I will say I do put a very short little thing at the top that says in this, and if there's anything you want to click and just delete the email, you can.
Perfect. And then we didn't even talk about your podcast. Oh my gosh, talk about it real quick.
Because fiction talks about, if it's Christian fiction, we talk about it. Usually it's interviews with authors. Once in a long while I pontificate because I have something to say, but usually it's just authors and author stuffness and, interviews, what's coming out, what are they doing? Or we'll go talk about their backlist because you need to read authors' backlists. They're important books. And I don't just say that because I got a huge one.
No, it's true. Oh my gosh. Some authors take years to put out their first book. They put so much time and effort into these stories, and it's really a journey. Like you said, God takes you on this journey too. So there's a lot of, just goodness in there that you got to read, and it's in every book, I mean, some are there for you at different time points that maybe are going to teach you something different each time. So yes, 100%. I love the podcast too. So yes, if you, and in the spirit of learning new books, new authors, absolutely listen to Chautona's podcast. It is super fun. I love listening to it. I love the conversations, and it really does introduce you to more new fun books. I just love it. Absolutely.
Thank you.
But thank you so much, Chautona. I really appreciate you. I appreciate everything, all these wonderful stories that you're putting out there. And just thank you so much for being here. This was super fun.
Oh, I really appreciate you having me and getting to just, talk books, because whenever you get to talk books, life is good.
Life is good. If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it with one book lover like yourself. We love to bless as many people as we can with exclusive interviews and, of course, great books. Each month, we host a themed book giveaway where you can win a selection of Christian romance novels and some extra goodies, too. This month's theme is Be My Valentine. We're giving away 5 heartwarming Christian romance books filled with love, second chances, and faith, all perfect for Valentine's Day. If you love sweet, uplifting stories, this is for you. Whether you're listening right as this episode comes out or in the future and don't want to miss out on the giveaway, no worries. You'll find the link to the current giveaway on our website, ChristianRomancePodcast.com. Thanks so much for listening, and until next time, keep your faith, share the love, and happy reading.